Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing again. Believe in a power greater than what you are going through. When you don't know what to do, keep breathing.
That's right. When you don't know what to do, just keep on breathing. From Los Angeles, the Big Apple, we are coming to you live 24/7. And I'm Dave Nassani on the Caregiver Dave Show with my lovely co-host, Adrienne Gruberg. And she looks so pretty today. She always looks pretty, but she looks extra pretty today. And we are so proud to be on so many different platforms. iTunes, YouTube, Spreaker, SoundCloud, about 25 of them. And we are, I don't have my script today, so I'm just going by memory, which is very dangerous.
Well, don't worry. Just say,
Don't worry. I've done it a million times. It's up here in my brain somewhere. And today we are so excited to have a wonderful guest on, Audrey Bond. What interested me in Audrey is that she has this app for caregivers that when I read about it, I said, oh, I want one. And so I knew I had to have her on the show. She wrote a couple of blogs that I'm going to put on our website and our Facebook page. So let's just get straight to the chase since we're so late here. Audrey, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Cool. I love it when they're thrilled to be here, don't you, Adrienne?
Yeah.
And let me just say, we like to ask our guests, I'm going to have you kind of introduce yourself, because I don't have my notes in front of me. But who is Audrey Bond, and why did God put her on this green earth?
Wow. Okay. I can do that. We'll get to what Audrey does later. Who am I?
Yes, we're talking about who am you, not what are you doing.
I'm a mother.
Ah.
I am a daughter. I'm a caregiver. I am stubborn. I am a lover of food that does things like that in excess. I'm a mother, I'm a daughter, I'm a caregiver. I was put on this earth to help people, to share my experiences with them, and hopefully to make things a little bit lighter and easier for everybody. Friends, family, strangers.
That's a good mission. Well, I found your bio, so let me just tell people about you so you don't have to do it. Audrey Bond has been an entrepreneur for over 25 years, so we have that in common. And for the last 2 years, she's been obsessed with building a solution to a personal problem she had, which turned out to be a fairly universal problem. See, as a caregiver, Adrienne, she's like all of us. She wants to try to make it easy, and then when she says, wow, this really works, she wants to share it with the world, to other caregivers. So as a single mother and the daughter of a disabled aging parents, two I assume, she was stressed, disorganized, and overburdened. Gosh, does that sound, familiar? With information and schedules, she wanted to secure location to communicate and an easy way to store and share important information. And her mission is to help families and caregivers stay organized and connected, alleviate stress, I got the hiccups here, excuse me, and give people back control of their data by building an end-to-end encrypted organizational and communication platform. See, that's what I read, and it's called Vaultt. So let's start with, wow. You want one too, Adrienne? Well, you're not a caregiver anymore. And so you talk about Vaultt, and what is that? What is Vaultt?
What is Vaultt? So Vaultt is a platform. It's an app. It's a tool. And I built it. I didn't build it myself, but we built it to solve a problem that I had, that I looked around and I saw so many other people having the same problem. And I didn't have I couldn't find a solution. I couldn't find the help that I needed. It started out about 10 years ago when I was going through a divorce, and I was the the single kind of caregiver for my daughter at that point. Her father was involved, but not as much as it could have been and should have been back then. But I still wanted to relay the information to him so that he could be connected and up to date and understand what was going on in my daughter's life. At that point, I decided I wished I had a centralized platform that I could share this information, my daughter's appointments, my daughter's any care, vaccinations, prescriptions, school updates, health updates, doctor's appointments, and I wanted to be able to share that with my ex-husband, but we couldn't. We didn't have this location, so we were disconnected. And then a few years later, I became the primary caregiver for my parents, and now I'm selling their house. I'm taking care of all of their care. I'm scheduling people to take my father to appointments. I'm scheduling my brother to take my father to appointments, and then hoping he's going to come back and give me the information. I'm looking after all their prescriptions, their medical insurance, their life insurance. I'm looking after all of it. And I was really stressed out. I was looking after my daughter. I was looking after my aging parents with their, and as you know, somebody that is disabled, or aging, quite often you'll have, 7 or 8 or 10 different specialists looking after each and every problem. And it just felt chaotic, and I was stressed out. I was overburdened. But again, I looked around and there were so many people going through the same thing. And I thought, I've got to do something about this. There's got to be a better way, because back in the day, people were using, email or text, but things got lost. And there were solutions out there. There were some organizational apps that were for like to-do lists, or there was Dropbox, but nothing was encrypted, right? So your data was being mined. They were serving with ads, and I just felt that I would like to have a place that I could put this personal information that I could share it with who I wanted to, but I wouldn't have to worry about anybody else seeing it. So I can, for instance, with Vaultt, it's Vaultt with 2 T's. I can put my daughter's information in there, and I can share that with my ex-husband so he can have access to that. I can also store my parents' information, all their and tasks and schedules and prescriptions, their power of attorney forms, their wills, and I can share that with my brother, but he wouldn't access my daughter's information. So I can choose who I want to share the information with and what they'll see. I can even share it with a lawyer. I can have my lawyer come and drop in a will or power attorney forms. Medical professionals that we're actually building out right now. We're potentially working with a large pharmaceutical company, and we're building out a medical passport. So it'll compile all of that care information that we've put in there, and then it basically generates a PDF so that if your loved one has to go to the hospital for emergency, maybe you're not with them, because there's a high percentage of people that are taking care of their families from afar. If they have to go to an urgent care or emergency, you can actually send that information over to the hospital, or you can print it out and take it with them. But if you can't be there, that information can actually get to that urgent care, so they right away know exactly the medical history, what prescriptions they're on, what they should know about it. Because if you ask my dad, if my dad is brought to emerge, which happens a lot, they're like, Mr. Heppel, how are you feeling? I feel great. Is there any problems? No, everything's great. How are you sleeping? Sleep fantastic. Do you have any back pain? Oh, right. My dad is dementia. So it's important that they understand, that he has a catheter, that he has congestive heart failure, that he has scoliosis, that he, and the care, and whether he's had strokes and what his history is. And so that is going to help prevent a lot of issues when they're brought in, during the intake process. So basically, we're providing an all-in-one organizational app for caregivers and families to help them securely store and share all that information and help give them peace of mind.
Wow. So I might have missed it, but did you invent Vaultt, or was there and you discovered it? And
no, it's mine. It was my baby born out of frustration. I like to say, because
I was going to say, are you technical like that? I mean, you're like, you can just invent an app?
Well, I didn't do the coding, so there's some genius developers that have partnered with me that have actually done the coding. But I've been an entrepreneur all my life, but I've had a million ideas in the past. But this one I did come up with. We all do, right? We've got I have another great business idea. I've had millions.
Well, how did you get investors? Because this thing costs money, doesn't it?
Yeah, it costs a lot of money.
So either you're independently wealthy, or you managed to talk people into saying, hey, maybe we can make money on this or whatever?
Yeah, I was a self-employed photographer. I mean, I had staff, but I was a professional photographer for 25 years. So I was not, and a single mom. I was not independently wealthy. But I came up with this idea, again, 10 years ago. I actually had this idea, and it was more family-centric. We hadn't really gotten towards the aging parents part of it yet. And I worked hard. I had a successful business, and I remember sitting down with some of the parents of at my daughter's school and talking about my frustration, how I wanted to build this hub. This was 10 years ago. And I wanted to build this. And they said, well, I have friends that are developers. Let me hook you up with them. And so I was talking with them, and we started doing market research. We started talking and doing consultations and seeing if there was interest. And it turns out everybody I talked to, whether they didn't have to be divorced, they could have just been, or caregivers or aging parents. Everybody seemed to have the same problem. You know, if you ask them, do you know what your passport number is? Like, you know, and if you lost it, would you have access to it, right? Or social insurance number, or health insurance, or home insurance, or that power of attorney form that you need, you know, can you access it? Everybody's like, yeah, it's on my desk, or no, I can't. So we started working on this 10 years ago, but to be honest, as a single mother to my daughter, who's I guess she would have been 7 at the time, 6, 7 at the time, the timing wasn't right. Like, she needed all of me in order to build this that I wanted to build. That also needed all of me, and I needed to work. I needed to work and make a living, so I couldn't do it full time. And my daughter, she was an only child, single mother. She needed me to be with her as much as possible, and my parents needed me as well. So I put that dream of mine on a rack and put it away, and I regretted it every single day. And it was this dark cloud that followed me around every day until about 2 years ago. I ended up bumping into that developer from back then, and he asked me whatever happened to Vaultt. And long story short, you know, he asked me, we looked to see if anybody had come up with, you know, an equally amazing solution. Was it out there? No, it wasn't. Were there people still looking for it? Yes, they were. He asked if I thought I could do it, and I'm like, yeah, you know, my daughter's, you know, at that time she was 15. I'm like, you know, I don't want to regret this any longer. You know, and This is how people get the opportunity again to come back at me like I did. So I thought, you know what, if I don't try, I will regret it for the rest of my life.
Yes. What you've done, you know, one of the things that people always tell me to write a book if I want publicity. And I've said, I don't need to write a book. The website is a story in itself. And there are so many books out there that will let you do all the things that you've put on this app, but you can't share that with anyone. So what you've done is made that possible. And that to me is, you know, like when I was caring for my husband and his brother was in Texas, I was caring for my husband and his mother, and the other son was in Texas. He didn't know anything.
That's what it is. That's what it is.
This would be a great thing to be on Shark Tank, you know, but you have an investor who invested the money in there, and you have partners, right?
We have a number of investors. I'm a single founder, a single lonely founder.
Wow, you truly are an entrepreneur, because finding investors is the hardest thing for an entrepreneur to do.
Very hard.
The men from the boys, shall we say. Well, good for you.
Yeah, no, fortunate. And, you know, we were able to raise enough money to continue to do our market research, to do our branding, to build out the iOS version, which is available in the App Store. And now we're going back and raising more money.
And it is mom safe, quote unquote.
It's military safe.
You make sure it's safe. Our data, because we're putting all our information there. You know, there's these little apps that save your passwords, and I'm always afraid. It says, just give us all your passwords. I got like 35 passwords. I don't know. And I'm afraid to do that because you're just putting all your eggs in one basket. If somebody ever hacks that, you're dead.
Yeah, you know, I believe that, I mean, I haven't done a ton of research on those apps, but they are pretty good. I believe they use similar encryption methods that we do. You know, the way that we've built out Vaultt is that we're actually safer than your mobile banking app, so that we can't even see your information as a company. It's so encrypted that even we can't see it. So if I wanted to go and check and see if my ex-husband had a Vaultt subscription and I wanted to see, you know, what he had in, I can't access it. So.
But I mean, companies like Asperian are hacked, and all of our information. Don't they have the latest encryption? You would think a company like them. I
But they
mean,
also have
where?
data. If they have access to your data, if it exists, if there's a door or window, or they have the key, so to speak, if there's a key that they have, they can go in and access it. There's always a risk. So we don't have the key. Only you have the key, and whoever you give the key to. So that it mitigates.
So there's
the
no
risk
key to be stolen, is what you're saying.
not from us.
No back door to get in through.
Now, we haven't built a back
Amazing.
door. I mean, that made it challenging. It made it more expensive to build because we are end-to-end encrypted, so it took longer to build. It was more expensive to build. It was very complicated to have it that safe, but also easy to use and easy to share on multiple platforms. It was a challenge, but it was a challenge that we were excited to meet.
Mom tested safe. So let's talk about caregivers, since they're our audience, and what are some of the biggest challenges family caregivers face right now that obviously your app can easily fix? You already touched on some of those, but the top three, because you have a long list of benefits, obviously, but just the no-brainers. Go over those again, just in case they weren't listening.
I think that, with what's been happening in COVID, it's just enhanced, grown some of the issues. And, you'll have families, for instance, that maybe one sibling is taking care of a member of the family or a parent, right? And because of COVID, there's risk. You don't want to have visitors all the time. So, and you don't want to have other family members coming in or having, grandma, move to different homes, right? And, different people's family members' homes. So, there's a lot more of a burden without being able to, hand off the torch, so to speak, right? That it's all now generally on one caregiver. I've had friends of mine she used to go down to Montreal, and she would go down every weekend to give her sister a little bit of respite, like a little bit of time off, so that she would look after her mother. But unfortunately, due to COVID and due to the risks right now, she is unable to do that. So, and without, what we've, yes, of course, I love what we've built, and I believe it solves the problems and so many problems for so many people. But, there's that burden that comes with caregiving, that exhaustion that comes, when you are the one that holds all the keys. You're the gatekeeper. You hold all the information. Not only are you doing the physical care, right, but there's also the organizational part side of it. So at least we can help alleviate that and connect the families so that my friend, the sister, can now, go online every day, go on her phone and actually get updates on how her mom's doing. And I was able to do that with my father in the hospital. I was able to do that and have my daughter, who was at home while I was in the hospital, and my brother were able to see. I would take pictures of my dad when he was actually eating a little bit. So to be able to share that information is extremely empowering.
This works equally as well if your loved one is in a facility and you can't get to them. So how does that work on their end?
So right now, this is a consumer product, but our goal right now is we do have partnerships with a home care agency, and we're looking to build out our partnerships with some of the longer care assisted living facilities where the caregivers themselves that are there will be able to put the updates, the daily updates, and a lot of these, unfortunately, a lot of these assisted living homes, they're not in the business of encrypting information because they're in the business of caring. So, there's risk for all that information, number one, and they're not really in the business of relaying that information to families, feeding that information daily, because they're focusing on the care. But unfortunately, we've seen in Canada, actually 80% of the COVID deaths, 80% happened in the long-term care facilities. And unfortunately, there's been and I don't know what it's like in the States, but I know that it's brought about some awareness of there's been some neglect. And families were just shocked. They had no idea. They had no idea because they're not getting that information, to them daily or every couple of days, pictures of their mother.
Are they willing to do this?
Well, we haven't talked. The home care providers, absolutely. It does. I mean, they need to show some sort of accountability. They need to put measures in that will make them more accountable to the families. And right now, the families are kind of left out of the loop quite often. So we have home care providers and some larger agencies that are very excited to be able to provide this as a part of it's a value add, right? So, we're caring for your loved ones, but we're also going to provide you with a subscription where you can put all that really important information, and we're going to communicate the care schedules as well. So you know who's looking after your mom when. My mom is constantly saying she's concerned, she's worried, who's coming tonight? Who's coming tomorrow? Who's providing this service?
Yeah.
And she's constantly concerned. So.
And the agencies are coming on board as well?
We're slow. We really just launched, so we're finished our beta right now. So this is our midterm plan is that we do have interest. We haven't implemented it yet, so we're looking. We still have to build out our Android and our web apps. So what we're doing
But it's a good sell to them. I mean, they can relieve some liability, and protect themselves that way, because there's huge liability in these facilities, and this seems like it would be something that they would benefit and embrace if they're educated properly. So that's good.
Yeah, they would have to learn what they were doing, of course, but the heads of the agencies might be very enthusiastic. What about the people who work, at residences or at home, in someone's home? I mean, they've got to be the ones to do it.
Yeah. Well, there's, over in North America, there's, and almost everything's in the States. Canada's a very small country. So in the North America, there's 42,000 home care providers, home care agencies. 42,000. Majority, there's a lot of, larger ones, mid-sized ones, but there's a ton of just small ones where they're just actually maybe taking care of one or two families, right? So, in this instance, this is why this will always be a consumer app. This will always be an app that's available on the App Store, right? So that families themselves can say, this is what we're using to communicate. So whoever is coming in, all they need to do is add on that caregiver, give them access, and ask that the caregiver goes on their phone and puts an update daily, right? It's very simple. We made the user interface so simple that as long as you can use Facebook, not necessarily Facebook Live, but as long as you can use Facebook, you can use Vaultt.
Yeah. Now, my daughter is always telling me, Dad, I'm 66 years old, and according to them, I'm senile and got one foot in the grave, which I don't. They want to know that if I die, where's all the stuff? Where's all the information? Where's all the bank account numbers? Where's all the safe combinations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? And I've got them all someplace in my safe, and I gave her the combination. But this sounds like it might be a better thing, because a lot of that might be out of date, and it's such a pain. Oh gosh, And I think I even have a video in there that I made. Hey, if you're watching this, I'm gone. Yeah. But that was like 25 years ago. I'm sure things have changed in my life and in their lives. They were maybe younger, and now they're married with kids, etc.
I love that you've done that. I have to admit, most people that I talk to aren't even that organized. Safety deposit boxes. But
it's out of date.
But it's true, but then it's out of date, and then there's so many other things like passwords to computers and accounts, and maybe your Facebook password, right? There's so many other things. And it's funny, with my parents, I realized that when I took over looking after their finances, and I had to, I was speaking with the bank, and I had my power of attorney form, and they said, okay, let's talk about how much money they have and how long can we live on this money, because it's the assisted living, because my father has dementia and my mother's a paraplegic. So it's very expensive to have them together.
And stressful, I would add.
Yeah, it's stressful. It's stressful on everybody, right? I think it's just a constant state for everybody. So
what if I don't want to share this information with them today, but in the future, does it have that versatility?
So, anything's possible.
You want to share it with them, so you never know when something's going to happen.
How do you know?
Yeah, right? But it's the proverbial "do not open until I'm dead," thing. Because I don't want them to have information to a lot of stuff until I'm gone. You know what I mean?
Well, then is there a section where you can put stuff?
Is there? What's the solution to that?
There's a legacy section, absolutely. I think this is great. This is like problem solving here. I love this.
Yeah.
I love this.
Oh, good. We're brainstorming.
This is how you come up with great ideas, right? So
Exactly.
I actually think that if your lawyer, right, has access or has a password, a special password, then as long as you
The
have the
key,
lawyer,
right?
as long as you give the lawyer the key, exactly. And that is actually tech talk. They do actually use public and private keys. So I had to learn all that. But if you can allow that, then the lawyer at that point can then invite the family to have access when the time is right. Because how are you going to know? You could be driving one day and all of a sudden, right? Something bad, God forbid, could happen. And then you have it and it's too late. So I think you would want to make sure that you have somebody that has the key.
And a lawyer would be a good person, or a trusted friend,
Trusted friend,
or
lawyer.
your spouse, because maybe one spouse will be alive and the other one, may go, or vice versa.
How many spouses do you have, Dave?
I got lots of them. No, I only have one.
The beauty of this, it is very collaborative. If you want it to be collaborative, it can be very collaborative, and with access and permission levels for different people. And again, the ease of use. So,
I'm going to download it just like Adrian just did and check it out. And I encourage everyone who's listening to also download it. Spell it for them again, just if they're impatient, they want to do it right now.
So in the App Store, you can actually go to our website as well. There's a link to download it from the website. So our website is www.vaultt.com. So it's Vaultt with 2 T's.com.
Vaultt.
Yeah, ULTT. So it's super secure. And right now we have a 50% off launch special. So our regular monthly subscription is the same price as a safety deposit box. So it's $12 a month. But right now you can lock in your price. So if you sign up as an early adopter, it's $5.99 a month, and that is your price, and that's what your price sticks at.
Yeah. So how has life as a caregiver changed during COVID-19 for you and, for everyone else?
I think that, I think all of us have felt somewhat, especially when the lockdowns were, depends on where you live in the world, that we've all felt a little bit
You're in
isolated.
Canada?
I'm in Canada.
I see the fire burning. Is it very cold up there? You got to set your source of heat?
I had to ask Siri. So it's 16 degrees Celsius, which is about 60 Fahrenheit.
It's not even that cold in New York, is it, Adrian?
No, it's 75 degrees right now.
Yeah. Wow, Canada. You must be really up there.
Yeah.
Okay, continue. Sorry, I interrupted.
I'm against wearing socks, so I'll put the fire on. So I find that during lockdown, it was, first of all, it's isolating, and when my parents were, again, they are now living in assisted living because me going back and forth 4 days a week wasn't working anymore. So at the point that they are now with their disabilities, they needed to have assisted living. And I find that because they were locked down for their own safety, I didn't see my father and my mother for 5 months.
How close are they?
Wow.
2.5 hours away.
No.
2.5 hours away, phone call every day. But, my dad's not a big talker. He's a shy guy, man of few words, and with the dementia.
And everything's great.
Everything's great. So I got to see him for the first time a month ago. So it was outside with masks, appointment only, socially distanced, 1 hour, all of that, right? And
How was it?
Dad, it was great. It was lovely. I'm like, Dad, I brought them, like I told you, I'm big into barbecuing and smoking. And so I brought them some smoked salmon because my dad's a maritimer. He loved that.
5 months, he might not have remembered who you are.
No, I can tell sometimes when it comes and goes. I'm like, Dad, how's your back? Great. Everything's great. Everything's great. Everything's great. And my mom's, everything's great. And everything's not great. But hey, that's great.
Well, at least they think everything's great. That's a lot of stress that they're not having.
My dad forgets, and my mom's in denial. So between the two of them, everything's great. Yeah.
Awesome.
So it was hard,
You sound like true Canadians.
Yeah, everything's great. But they're nice people, right? They're nice people. They don't want to be a hassle. They don't want to ask too much of anybody. But what had happened because of the isolation, my parents were also locked inside their room. So, they didn't get to go to their dining room. They didn't get to do any activities. It was really hard. So it's hard on us, right? It would be hard on us. Imagine being stuck in your, one room. For my mother, with her husband.
How old are they?
My dad is 89 and my mom is 83. And so being stuck in that with, again, my dad has dementia, so it's not easy on my mom, and my mom is paralyzed and in the constant daily pain, neuropathic pain. So that's not easy on my dad. And so they're almost codependent, but they do have caregivers, right? But what
So
happened
they're in
was,
assisted living. So they've got doctors in the facility. They get their meals prepared. They have checkups there, etc.
yeah, all that,
All that
foot
stuff.
care, haircuts if they
Is there a
want.
memory wing of the place for them that they're in?
There is a memory, there is a ward, I guess they call it, or the floor.
Is he in
And
that floor or not yet?
not yet, very soon. They did bring it up recently, but I
Yeah.
said, listen, this isolation has been really hard on him and everybody,
Yeah.
right?
It was smart of you to pick a facility that has that because, very stressful moving them out of a place. So whenever, I always tell people, whenever you're going to put someone in, pick a place that you know that they may grow into so that you don't have to keep changing because it's so hard to move them, isn't it?
Yeah, it was, and and something I always tell people: try if you can do it. Don't wait until it's like a fire sale.
Right.
Don't wait until it's too late. And it was way too late. It was a panic. It was definitely, and it was one of those things that they don't want to have that conversation. And I tried for years to have the conversation, but what I did find is that being isolated made my parents even more vulnerable in areas that I didn't think about. And one of them was that my mom was the victim of a cyber kind of scam. So my mom's a paraplegic, but she's bright. She loves to go on the computer. She looks at recipes. She sends emails. She sends those joke emails to me, 25 times a day. Watch this video. This is funny,
She's paralyzed from the waist down?
From the waist down. And she has been.
How did that happen?
So she is, it was when I was 12 years old, and she had, it's an arterial venal malformation, but what happened was it was kind of malpractice. She went into the hospital with back pain and neck pain, and it had been getting progressively worse. I remember my mom always wearing this, the neck brace that she would wear. She'd be coming to my ringette games, and she'd be wearing this because her neck hurt, especially in the car. It would help. And so she went to the hospital just for some tests. They injected dye into her spine, and she was immediately paralyzed.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
So she's been living with that for a long time.
Yeah.
God bless her.
And for people, we've all got their stories and their personal experiences, and they're all different, and there are some overlaps. But what I noticed for my family, when that happened, it was devastating. And we just had to figure out how are we going to make this our new normal? Like, how are we going to adapt to this? And, my dad was now a caregiver to his wife all of a sudden, and there were no tools. There were no Vaults. There was no forums. There were no, caregiver spaces. None of this existed. And it's, I've been watching my parents caregive. My dad caregived to my mom, and then my father had cancer. My mother, who's a paraplegic, trying to care for my father, and kind of back and forth, and then I came in and trying to care for them. My brother has mental health issues, so we're trying to now caregive for him as a group, and then I'm caregiving for my daughter through her issues. But where I'm going in circles, but I want to come back to this very important part here, which was how vulnerable people are, especially with the isolation. So what happened and people need to know this happens. I've talked to so many people this has happened to, and I want your listeners just to be aware of this, and I hope and pray that it hasn't happened to them. My mom was on the computer, and a little pop-up came up, and she must have gone on a website, and it said, your computer has a virus, right? So call tech support at 1-800. And so my mom, of course, she's like, I'm this is Barbara. Sure. Oh, okay. You want access to my computer? I'll do whatever you say. So all of a sudden now they had access to her computer. You want my credit card? Okay. And so when I talk to my mom every day. And so I was speaking, and thank God I do, right? And when I spoke to her that night, she's like, oh, I spent a lot of money today. And I'm like, what? How much did you spend, Mom? Because she likes to go on Amazon, and she likes to buy books and things. And I'm like, how much did you spend, Mom? And she's like, $1,000. And I'm like, on what? Like, we can't afford that, right? But this is not in the budget, Mom. And she said, oh, I had a virus on my computer, but it's fixed now. It's fine. And I was like, oh my God. So I'm like, okay, Mom, you've got, and at that time, I actually realized I hadn't connected her visa. I didn't have like a power of attorney over the visa. Like, they didn't know who I was. I'd never had to call. And so I had to go through the process of going into a bank, same bank, during hardcore COVID, right? Where nobody wanted to go out, wear the masks. And I had to, bring the power of attorney forms. Thankfully, I had Vaultt. Thankfully, I was able to email them the power of attorney forms quickly. But, that's, and make all the changes, and now have to go back to every single one of her accounts and make sure all the passwords are changed, and flag her bank so they can watch her investments. So, because if that had gotten drained, then what? Where do my parents go with the needs they have? So people need to be very, very careful out there and be very aware. And I feel like it was because of this isolation, because of COVID, it makes everybody a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more needy and a little bit more vulnerable. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to now have the phone number, I think, forwarded to my phone number. So any call they get, because I can't be
That's
there.
smart.
I couldn't even go to their computer. I couldn't, be there to answer and go, hey, if you call my mom one more time, kind of cease and desist. I can't do that because I can't be there. That is the problem. That's one of the challenges. So we've got to come up with innovative solutions on how to help our loved ones, right, when we can't physically be there all the time.
With the isolation, people are spending a lot more time online. They're also buying a lot more on Amazon.
And fraud is at the high, too.
And fraud is really at an all-time high because people are very, very vulnerable. And some of these scams really are quite sophisticated and look very legitimate.
I know. I almost fall for some too. They come with the official logo, and I've been getting these things saying your Apple account is about to authorize, $1,000 on such and such. If this is okay, don't do anything. If it's not okay, click here. And so I'll always hover over the link, and it'll show me where it's going. And if it's not going to that official website, forget it. Know?
But and also go back and check where the email is coming from. Check the actual email address of where it's coming from as well.
The other thing I wanted to ask is this app strictly for caregivers? It sounds like it's got many, many non-caregiver applications, which is attractive to investors because, always on Shark Tank they say, well, your audience is so narrow, it'd be nice.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 46 million people is not narrow.
65 million
investors like it even bigger. They'd like, the whole population to be prospective clients. And I just mentioned, the people who, in estate planning, that's a big audience right there. What other avenues are this available for that would even increase your audience besides caregivers and people who are talking about retirement?
It's funny. In the beginning, everybody I talked to, everybody's like, yeah, I could use this. For instance, I even had one day, I was filling out information to get my dog's, it was for his little license for the city. And they wanted to know his microchip number. And I'm like, I don't know my dog's microchip number. So I called the vet and I'm like, hi, do you have Poppy's microchip number? And they're like, no, we don't have that. And I'm like, you've got to bring your dog in, have your dog scanned. And then I'm like, okay, well then, where do I put that? Right. So when we initially built Vaultt, it was for families. It was for everybody because you can actually. I have a friend of mine. They have actually a number of homes. They have tenants in different cities, right? Real estate property, and they talk about the stress of having to keep that organized and who does the drywall on the house in Toronto and what is the paint color, on the house that they rent in Montreal and the tenants and the lease and having a place. So it is totally custom. It can be customized to the user.
Yeah.
Every bit of information that we don't know where that's in this filing cabinet right next to me that is huge, and I still can't find things because they're misfiled or say, what did I file that under and so on. But I'm getting excited.
And,
Yeah.
and you can, and this is why it is for caregivers. And yes, we're talking about care information, but then you can actually go in now and organize everything else for your life. So you can have a vault for I have a vault, for instance, for my granny and granddad, it's called. That's all my parents' information. And then I have one for the Bond family. So I have myself, my daughter's information, including her report cards, all her prescriptions and vaccinations. I have one for my dog, Poppy. I have one for my car. Right? Because often you get those, you go get your service and then here's your piece of paper. So all I do now is we've built in wicked scanning functionality, and you just go bleep and it scans it, and then you can drop it right underneath your auto vaults.
Like checks.
And every time we go to a doctor, they always ask you, well, what medications is your wife on? And I can almost remember the names now, but now, and what was the dosage? And I got to remember the dosage too.
I know, when they come up with dosage, oh God.
Well, we're a tech startup, and so we're constantly tweaks, and we have a new build coming out early next week with a whole bunch of updates, which are going to be exciting. And one of the things that I recognized for the prescriptions, one of the next updates that we're going to be doing in the very near future is that we're going to have a drug database integration, so that you can start typing in the name, because normally they're quite long, right? You start typing in it, and then you can choose from the list. You can choose the dosage, and then you're able to mark whether it's a current medicine or past medicine. Again, this functionality isn't built in yet, but we're working on it right now. So they are developing it right now, our developers. So, and then you'll be able to say that it's whether it's current or a past medication. And the reason for me why I thought this is so important is that, again, my mother is a paraplegic, and she has a catheter, so that is a full-time catheter, and she gets urinary tract infections all the time. And she ended up, I remember once they said, okay, she's got a urinary tract infection, and they've given her an antibiotic, and it's not working. So their policy is that they have to send her to Emerge. And I'm like, oh God, please don't send her to Emerge. Please don't. She's a paraplegic. They can't handle that. It's not an easy thing. They're not set up necessarily to handle full-on, little old ladies that are in wheelchairs, maybe, but a full-on paraplegic is a whole other story. And then if my mom, as soon as my mom goes, my dad, what's going on? Who am I? He's all alone. And I'm like, please. So I try to avoid Emerge as much as possible. And I'm like, and my intuition, my gut feeling says, wait a second, wasn't mom just on an antibiotic? And wasn't she on one just recently? And my mind went through, and you get this intuition.
Those periodic, sporadic medications that you only take when there's an issue, like a toothache, antibiotics, and so on.
You would also know which ones didn't work.
So I was able to, I remember calling.
What you're allergic to.
And write it down, make a note. Please don't give me that again, right? And I remember calling the residents, and they said, okay, well, we're going to send her to Emerge. I'm like, don't. Wait a second. My gut feeling was that she had antibiotic resistance because she had been on certain antibiotics, the same antibiotic, a Cipro antibiotic, over and over and over again. And I'm like, just give her a different antibiotic. Give her a different. And at that point, the pharmacy was closed, and I kept on calling. I think I spent an hour on the phone with them, emailing, and they finally said, the time has come. We've got to send your mom. So at the end, what happens? She goes there, they look at her history, they're like, yeah, let's give her a new antibiotic, send her back home in a couple of days later, right? But the amount of money, the amount of time, the amount of stress on everybody, the pressure on the healthcare system, the amount of time that I wasted calling and the people working at the residence. Had I had that there, as her caregiver, I would have been able to say, hey, look at this. I know it's not coming to you, but look at the amount of things,
That's great. That's great. So, Adrian, you downloaded the app.
Yeah.
What did the app cost? Is it a free app? Is it 99 cents? Is it $10? How much is it?
It's on sale now for $5.99 for early adopters.
Wow. And there's a 14-day free trial. So no commitments. You can cancel at any time.
Is that a yearly $5.99 or monthly or one time, or what is that?
It's a monthly $5.99, and then there's a price for the year, but you're actually only paying for 10 months if you pay it by the year. So it's like most apps that you'll actually save 20% by paying by the year. And then the price will eventually start going up as we kind of go beyond our launch mode, but your price will be stuck with the prices that you're locked in.
Dave Nasani, the caregiver's caregiver
has just released his 6th book entitled It's My Life Too, Thrive to Stay Alive as a Caregiver. It was specifically written for caregivers who know they should be putting their needs first, but just don't know how. Dave is the sole caregiver to his wife, Charlene, since 1996. He knows firsthand what caregivers are going through, because he is one. He now speaks all across the country, offering caregivers his amazing caregiver support package. Even the airlines tell us that in the event of an emergency, to put your oxygen mask on first, before you help your child with their mask. They know that those who don't heed their advice often black out, thus becoming unable to help either themselves or their child. And caregivers are exactly the same way. It's My Life Too, Thrive and Stay Alive as a Caregiver will help caregivers who are neglecting their sleep, diet, and social life and learn to put their needs first. Pick up your copy today or buy one for your special caregiver. On sale everywhere and at caregiverdave.com. And we're back with Audrey Bond.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
In the commercial, it was lovely. What is that thing that you refer to when you say social life? In the commercial, it says people that are neglecting their sleep and their diet, and the caregivers that are neglecting their sleep, their diet, and their social life. And I'm like,
that means they're isolating themselves. You know, maybe they had a friend that they would go out, to the gym with, or to a movie, or to lunch, or to Starbucks, or to get a massage, or get your nails done, and they did it with a part. Now they're isolated, and maybe their friend doesn't come around because all they do is complain to the friends about the terrible day they had. Save that, I say, for the support group. Don't damage your personal relationships, or people will stop coming by, stop calling, because nobody wants to be around Debbie Downer. Unfortunately, that's what I meant.
Absolutely.
Isolation. Right, Adrian?
Right. Isolation.
Isolation.
I've forgotten what a social life was like, that's all.
A social life. Well, shame on you. You need to put your needs first, Audrey, and you need to, which obviously, you have a little more freedom since your parents are in a facility.
I was in their home. I was back and forth.
You were in their home. Yeah, how was that compared to now?
It was
different.
I take my hat off, my sunglasses off to those that are on the front lines. It was so stressful, right? At one point.
But your freedom, you had less freedom, right?
Yeah.
There were
Absolutely.
issues. Well, I can't go to the store because who's going to be with them? What if the house burns down? You're always imagining these scenarios why you can't do what you have to do. It's hard to get people to come in. Hey, can you just come for an hour so I can go shopping? Or can you come for 30 minutes? I just got to get away. I got to go to Starbucks. That's hard. But when they are in a facility, which, like you had admitted to, you probably waited too late to do it. I know I did with my mother to get her out to independent living, and then to get her from there into assisted living, and then to get her from there into, she went the whole gamut into the nursing home and then into the hospice. Each time was very, very stressful. And sure. If I had to do it all over again, I would have picked a facility that had the advancements all under one roof. But yeah, it's hard.
It's hard even to find those. They are,
and they are more expensive. You're very fortunate to have, I don't know if they had long-term care. That really, really helps. But if they had a big, income, you can transfer the income into your account where you're responsible now for all their bills, and maybe now they will qualify for Medicaid. And I know Medicaid has a lot of different programs. Pardon?
She's in Canada.
Well, Canada, I'm sure, has some kind of socialize something.
Yes.
Everyone brags about it.
Yes.
But there's still people from Canada who will come over here to America to have their surgery done. So there must be a difference in quality. Anytime you offer something free, the quality goes down, I think.
Not necessarily. I disagree with that because I've done both. Okay. I'm going to disagree with you. So I've actually done both. I am one of those people, and people thought I was crazy. I had doctors. I had great care here. I've had multiple surgeries in my life and wonderful care, and I walked away and didn't pay a penny. But because I was a professional photographer for 25 years, I had got carpal tunnel, and I needed to have surgery. I couldn't use my hand anymore. But unfortunately, for elective surgeries, because it was elective, it wasn't urgent. I couldn't say when I wanted to have the surgery, because I would have said the week of February 10th. That's
Is
the
that
week.
normally or during the COVID thing?
Normally, depends on the surgery. Elective
Okay.
surgeries.
So there are
you may
some
have
restrictions, yeah.
There are some restrictions. So I did go to the States, and I did pay a ton of money. But the only reason I did that was because I needed to be able to have a recovery period when I didn't have work. I only had a
Sure.
small window, so and that was it.
Yeah,
But
I scheduled this surgery, you see, my ankle surgery here. And yes, it is yellow. I had to fit it into my schedule. It's in between CNN in Atlanta and Acapulco in Mexico, and I had a and then they want to do the other one, so now I got to fit that in. I'm supposed to be in New York in December, Adrian. Make sure the city's all cleaned up by December, please.
Oh, yeah.
Between December and London, which is in March, so because it's a 1 month recovery, and no, yeah.
I think you said it's more than that.
No, it's more than 1 month. They told me 1 month, and then I found out it's actually like 12 weeks.
So I'm
You got to
expecting.
fit that into your schedule very carefully.
So I am waiting for foot surgery as well. Then when I
It's
mentioned
hell
that
to get old, isn't it?
oh no, it's because I'm stubborn. I'm stubborn, and I made.
Me
I did
too.
something.
They wanted to do this 2 years ago.
Well, I was standing on a 12-foot ladder with a chainsaw, trimming my trees.
Believe it or not, I've done that too. That's.
So I'm,
Yeah.
anyways, long story short,
So
I
you're a
broke my
daredevil.
foot.
You should be a stunt person.
My investors aren't happy with that. They don't. I'm not allowed to do any of that. So, yeah,
Well,
I am waiting surgery, but COVID
what
has
do we need
affected
to?
that.
We have a couple of minutes left. What do we need to talk about that we haven't talked about?
First of all, how to get a hold of me. I'm going to give you my personal email address. It's
Oh my gosh! Get your pens ready, everybody.
So you can contact me directly, because I would love to hear from people, whether they, if they download the app and they have
Yeah, with
questions,
ideas for
ideas,
updates.
feedback, please reach
All
out. I
right,
would love to hear from you.
I'm ready.
It's all about connections, right? And it's
Right.
important. So my email address is Audrey, Audrey, at Vaultt, VAULTT.com. So send me an email, and I'd love to talk to people. And one thing I didn't mention, and through all of this, outside of the fact that, yes, I believe that we've built this amazing tool that's going to help alleviate a lot of the information burden and the stress and the disorganization that comes along with caregiving. And there are so many issues, with caregiving. There's physical, disorganized, physical stress, right? Because you're exhausted, or sleep, or there's mental health issues, right? That come along with the caregiving, the stresses of caregiving. And I mean, we're going to help with the disorganization, but I had to say, like, I feel like that we're, hopefully going to have this wonderful community, and what else can we do? We built this is awesome, that's great, but I feel like we can do more. And so I know that I was talking to my team, and I'm like, I realized how important that I felt when my father was in the hospital and he was dying. He didn't die. He's 90, almost 90, and he's like the strongest generation. And his vitals are probably stronger than mine now, but at that point he was dying, and I had to sign a DNR for him, and I hadn't slept in a number of days. And because he had kidney failure, his dementia was just through the roof. Like, it was, and he couldn't even talk, he couldn't eat, he couldn't drink, he didn't know who I was, and he was, yelling at me, didn't know who I was, and it was probably the most heartbreaking. It was like, this was the day. It was the worst moment of my life. And I felt so alone, and I was in the merge, and there was caregivers sitting with their loved ones, and they were all looking at me. And at one point I stood up and I just backed away from my dad, because he was screaming at me, and he was, who are you? Get away from me. I don't want you near me. And I remember backing up, and I had kind of quiet tears running down my face. And I looked at the bed beside, and there was a man sitting there, and he was in his gown. And he was basically, my dad had kept the entire ward an emergency. People were supposed to be sleeping. It was 3 a.m. People should have been sleeping. The lights were dim, and my dad was just going for it, right, screaming. And I'm just like, everybody was awake. So I backed up, and there was a man named Bob that was sitting beside me. And he looked at me, and he put out his hand. And I kind of hustled right over, took his hand, sat down on his bed, and I kind of quietly wept. And he said to me, he said, that's not your dad. It's the disease, you know? He goes, kid, you've been here for 3 nights. You haven't slept. You haven't eaten. He goes, go to your car. It was like minus 35 here in Canada. It was freezing. Go to your car, sleep for a couple of hours. Your dad's not going to know. It won't make a difference. And so I'm like, okay. So I went to the car. The first thing I did was I went on my phone, and I'm like, and I just went onto Facebook, and I'm like, caring for parents with dementia, stress. I looked for a group. I looked for somebody that I could connect with, and I found a group. And thankfully, there was a moderator on that let me in right away. So like, yay, I'm in. It was 3 a.m. And all I could do was just dump. I just dumped my experience, the pain that I felt, and this moment that I was going through. And then very quickly, bing, 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 and all these wonderful strangers, which were actually mostly in the States, they all of a sudden, you know, sending you love and light, praying for you. I get it. Here's my experience. And that moment, that I realized that, yeah, okay, we're building a tool. Great. It's going to help people. Great. But there's something greater than, I mean, the technology is great. But I realized that having that connection and either having somebody else make themselves vulnerable or you making yourself vulnerable and sharing your experience with others, that is worth more than anything else in the world, right? When you realize you're not the only one, when people can give you that, even the support, it's the kindness of strangers, you know, and the support of people that know what it's like because they've been there. And so what we're doing, and I realize now that, you know, Adrian and you both have similar things as well in your platforms, is that we've actually building in, if you look on our website right now, there's a tab that we have called Caregiver Stories, and we're building out basically Caregiver Stories, a photograph, like kind of like Humans of New York, photographed, and then a blurb, a curated blurb of their experience. You know, whether it's a triumph, whether it's an awful experience, whether it's, you know, the first time you had to put diapers on your loved one, you know, whether it's as heart-wrenching as that, or whether it's, you know, something that, you know, just a really human experience. I think that there's so much value in that. So again, I'm always open to anybody that ever wants to share that with others, you know, and I think that's there's so much value in that. So I thank you both for doing what you're doing, because you know you're both doing this, and I think it's incredible.
Well, you're doing it too,
so
just in a different way. So you're going to have a caregiver version of this, and maybe a different version, and so on and so on. You might have 5 or 6 or a dozen different versions of this app to different target audiences. Am I correct?
Yeah. Well, right now, you know,
we haven't gotten that far yet.
Oh, we are. We're working towards it. You know, when you have a startup, you know where you are, and you also know where you're going. Investors want to know where you're going as well. You're asking about the caregiver community, you know, and we're going bigger. The caregiver community, like in the United States alone, there's over 65 million caregivers. You know, it's at 29% of the American population, you know, providing care for chronically ill and disabled family members, and there's actually 7 to 10 million Americans right now that are doing what I was doing, which is caregiving from afar. You know, 87% of those people said that they want to be more organized. So right now, we really do believe that the caregivers and families is where we're going. But we are also building a version of this that will have integration of employee scheduling. So when we do start working with the long-term care facilities and the home care agencies, that the schedules will actually become integrated directly into the app. So you can go on your phone and you'll automatically know who's doing what.
If I want to share information with somebody, they need either the app or to download something to see it, right?
Yeah. So right now we've just launched with the Apple, which is the iOS version, and we're building, and again, trying to get this product as perfect as it can be. So we have got updates coming, and then once we're like, okay, yeah, this is pretty great, then we're going to duplicate this onto Android and the web. And we're already half built, so we're just waiting for these refinements that we're doing on Apple's. There's no point in going back and changing all the platforms all at once. So we're building the best possible product once, and then so that so if I had a subscription, right, which is my $5.99 because I subscribe now, and I invite my ex-husband to access my daughter's information, he doesn't have to pay. He can just he actually can get it. Yeah, it's only the central Vaultt user pays.
I see.
So if my brother is only coming in to access my parents' information, he doesn't have to pay. Or my ex-husband, he doesn't have to pay. But he may actually realize
the internet. He can see it on the internet. He doesn't need.
No, he'll be able to go on the web or his phone, which he uses an Android. Yeah.
Very good. Well, I can't believe how fast time has gone. Give your email one more time.
Yeah, I'll give you a little bit of information again. The
Okay.
website you want to go to find out more information on Vaultt with 2 T's is www.vaultt.com, and email me, Audrey, Audrey, at vaultt.com.
All right. Well,
And I'd love to hear from people.
awesome
see what they
show.
think.
Very, very informative. Adrian, she's at Adrian at thecaregiverspace.org and caregiverspace.org, and Facebook group, same domain. And I'm at caregiverdave.com and Facebook group, Caregiver Dave. So thank you again, everybody, for showing up, and we'll see you again next week, same time, same channel. Bye-bye.
Thanks for having me.
Sometimes it feels like the sun will never rise, like the birds will never sing.